But we do have his home address. Paul's home. That is 111 Edding Street. Paul Walker? No. Paul Castillo. Address is 111. Well, that is an yeah, Edding Street. And we do have his photo at the library. Paul's photo, which we haven't been able to use yet. Hey, there we go. Kill switch ready. Kill switch engage. Dun, 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 dun. Description Belgium crossed out. Okay. Select file to upload. But they're trying to switch. Oh, no, wait. Hold on. There. Okay. So that goes there. Chap. Okay, now that makes sense. I was so lost. I'm like, what did we not download? I just missed it, I guess. Like, I just didn't end up clicking on it like I thought I did. Okay, there we go. Oh, my God. App needs a final activation code. It's your voice. User, do not disturb. All notifications are blocked. Try again later. Ruby, the town literally depends on you. Answer me. You're the final piece of the puzzle. Just send a voice.
Hey, you're here. I made a mistake. But I can end it, Rook. You'll see that it's for the best. I'm not afraid anymore. I feel clarity. You should have felt it too by now. Don't deny its voice. Let it through. I can see it in your eyes. I can't do that, Rook. But I'm glad to see you. I'm glad you're here. My pursuit was flawed. In trying to escape Stone Creek, I've become a symptom of the plague that haunts it. And the only way to move forward is to disappear. Left only as a memory, and soon, nothing. Don't say his name! Stone Creek was doomed from the start.
There's so many weird videos.
Keeping it alive only damned anyone who tried. If this town and everyone in it wants to see itself to its end, then who am I to deny their wish? I am a part of it. Let me fade into nothingness with it. Know how. What if I screw up again? No! seen the damage I can do. Remember Morgan? What I made you do to her? No one deserves that. No one deserves that. I should have paid more attention. People were vanishing. They look at me to honor their stories, to tell their truth. Instead, I valued my own ambition over their cries for help. The people that I've left behind, the pain I caused, I can't take those away. How can I face myself? No. They deserve justice. I should disappear with them. Stone Creek doesn't feel like home anymore. It's a town of two hearts. Its leaders bending everyone to their vision while the people get torn apart. How can I save a town that's so torn at its core? I can't continue anymore. Let Stone Creek fight for its own soul.
They barely give you any time to even read the fucking sentences.
Is it really that easy?
Like, I'm trying to read it to understand it, and I don't even have time to comprehend the sentence I just read, because it's just like...
I
it's
am
way
the voice
too
of the
fast.
people. Ah!
What is up with the weird, rough cuts? They've had so many in their videos.
It's too much.
This is a very cool image. Like, they've done some really cool things effect-wise, but...
Still.
There's some other things that are just really rough that don't feel like normally up to par with the other games.
Everything is slipping away. Who am I? Who will save me? Join us. It's getting harder to think. Embrace your sins. I need to get
audio here is very cool. The visuals are very cool.
She records that sound. Let's set them up. No running. Not you. You were the face of the ghost. Unable to exist without something to latch on to. You're a fucking swamp! A parasite! You have no power here! Now get out of my head!
That was a cool moment. I like that.
What happened? Rook, you were there. You got me out. I don't know what to say. You pulled me back. Thank you. Thanks for believing in me. Okay, I hate to spoil the moment, but there's something that we gotta do. The Beldam? No, that thing. Stone Creek is just the beginning, okay? If we don't finish what Paul started, it's gonna start consuming everything. Now, where were we? This is... right! Paul's plan to save us from the Beldam. To save all of us. Ruby Myers. That's it, right? Okay, let's not muck around anymore. Execute the plan, and we'll meet at the HQ. We've got so much to talk about. See you soon.
Ruby saved Hayes. So yeah, she could have either been taken by the Beldam or saved, and we actually saved her. Ooh, lots of stuff. Oh, Lord. So this is all of a sudden the impact of the kill switch. Oh, nice. Because we didn't have the Beldam go after the Richardsons are just out. The Beldam rewritten. Kind of going with the tarot card effect from the second game. As the new tale of the Beldam spreads on Atlas, residents of Stone Creek dig deeper into its origins. Some recall stories passed down by elders when pieced together corroborates the account. Evidence of this is also found in old journals and secret documents originating from the time period. Centuries of lies now dispelled, Stone Creek witnesses the Beldam in her truth, and they embrace her once more. No longer a symbol of fear and malice, the Beldam represents hope and belonging. Under her light, the Simulacra is transformed into a benevolent presence in Stone Creek. Over time, the disappearances grind to a halt. The missing are never found, but the town remembers them dearly. A memorial is constructed in their honor so their memory may live on. Due to the mismanagement of investments and poor handling in the missing persons cases, the council is driven out of Stone Creek. The town's future is left uncertain, but only for a breath. New leadership takes hold, consisting of individuals from all parts of Stone Creek. Together they make good use of the town's natural beauty and rich allure to attract business. The people and the town's identity remain at the forefront of every arrangement. Stone Creek fulfills its potential and becomes a town that was promised long ago. A new purpose. With Ruby freed from the grasp of the Beldam, the Simulacra, she vows a new purpose to use her voice for others. Ruby no longer sees Stone Creek as a place to escape from, but a place like any other with its own faults and charms, filled with people whose struggles mirror her own Now, Ruby writes more than the stories she wants, she writes the stories that need to be told. Her writing becomes a source of inspiration for the town, and Stone Creek is better for it. When an opportunity presents itself for Ruby to leave Stone Creek, the moment isn't like what she expected. Though excited, Ruby finds herself conflicted, knowing she's found something worth staying for. Simulacra 3. All right, so we are at the credits for Simulacra 3. So overall thoughts. I think that the designs that we did have for the Beldam for this specific Simulacra look fantastic. The eye and the glow and the spazzing out of the videos, again, they do keep getting better in each Simulacra game. The distortions and stuff like that. The actual artwork of the Beldam or of the Simulacra in that drawing form going around Paul's house looked freaking creepy and awesome. Really, really looked good. Very, very impressive. So, you know, good job to the team who put that together. I will say, though, Simulacra 3 is a little bit of a letdown. It has way less character development. It has way less characters to really interact with. It really had a lot less story and discovery. In Simulacra 1 and Simulacra 2, the player felt a lot more active in the game. They were searching, they were discovering, they were, you know, putting in that detective work and piecing things together, while also having some fantastic creepy moments with the phone and with the interactions with the Simulacra. This game really didn't have a lot of that. It barely had any real interactions with the Simulacra between you and the Simulacra. It really didn't have a lot of the scarier creep factor moments. It was missing a lot of that. There wasn't a lot of discovery. A lot of stuff just felt passive. It just felt like, click here. Now click here. Now click here. There was so much less stuff to discover. And the awesome thing about Simulacra 2 is the fact that you had so many different chains and so many different endings. You know, Mina could be killed off. Rex could be killed off. Was it Adria? Adria? Is that her name? I can't remember now. She could have been killed off. All four of them could have been killed off. Or you could have saved all three of them could have been killed off. Or you could have saved all three. And then, of course, there were the different roles. You're a detective. Now you're a journalist. There was so much replayability. This game, to me, does not have any replayability. Outside of like, oh, do you want to screw over Morgan or do you not want to screw over Morgan? Do you want to give Thomas the Jabber integration or not? And even then, either way, if you talk him into it or not, you still get what you want out in the end anyway. It felt so much more linear. And it lost some of its charm from that. Like, it lost some of its element that I feel like the Simulacra series is known for, is for choices that are well guided, where you don't feel incredibly lost, but you still have those choices there at your fingertips. And it just felt like most of the time I was just passively clicking and just going, cool. Okay, it wants me to click every text option, not just the one, and then they switch to new stuff. Like, I was commending them on the amount of work they put into, like, all the postings and the comments and the images on Chimera and Jabber in Simulacra 2, and the type of information you could find, and like how to piece together and be like, oh, okay, this person posted that their phone doesn't work, but that this email does. So you got to email them. And then you go back, you do this and that. Oh, well, how do we find them though? Oh, okay, well, we can find them through their work email. Like, that stuff was awesome when you could do that chain. That kind of complexity is just really not here in this game. And it's really unfortunate. Like, it's an okay story. But like, it just feels like it lost so much of what Simulacra 1 and 2 were building up to. So to call this 3, it just doesn't really feel exactly right. I mean, I never played Pipe Dreams. I was actually planning on it. But I mean, you could almost consider, in my eyes, it's like almost considering Simulacra 3 to be like a Pipe Dream game, where it's just like, well, it's just kind of like an offshoot of like the main series. It doesn't feel like a part of the main series. So it just feels weird calling it 3. The acting for the most part was fine. it was good. Especially Ruby, actually, when we finally do get to actually see her, but we don't really have any connection with her because she's just kind of thrown at us and she's just like, okay, you do this rook and you do this rook and you do this rook and you do this rook. And it's like, okay, whatever. You keep calling us rook, which is kind of fucking annoying, but okay. And it never ends. Like even some growth in character where she stops calling you rook at the end might show like more of a partnership, right? But she never does. At least not that I caught. There were also some puzzles where again it needed better description. And it's weird because in some missions or some parts of the objectives, they had hints. Just like in the second game, they give you hints, and you're like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, these are some of the hints. Oh, okay, that's the process I need to go through. And for some reason, they had started it on certain things, but on the things where they really needed the hints, they don't use them. And it's like, why aren't you using them here? You have them as an option for other things, but where it really counts, you don't have the hint system. So why is that not there? And then, I like the idea of course, as always, the mixed media. And I feel like there is way less mixed media here than some of the other ones. And I feel like the videos were okay, but they were really roughly cut, especially once you get to, what was it? Oh yeah, once you get to like the live stream video where Ruby is going through Paul's house, it was so badly cut. Like you could tell it was like, okay, and we're going to break here. And then we start up again, but we're in a new position. So it looked like visually it's very disjointed and the audio was completely off. It's like certain parts were like quiet and then it got really loud. And then it got really quiet again. Then really loud and then really quiet. Like audio was everywhere from like the middle of the game and on. Where the images cut were just all over the place. And it just felt like things were rushed. It was inconsistent. And I don't know why that was. I really don't. And, usually they pulled in people from kind of all over, from Malaysia, because that's where the development team is from, but also from other places like the UK and stuff. And this time it just felt like they just had their own little team and they just quickly like did something in Malaysia and then sent it off, which doesn't inherently mean it's a bad thing. But I just have to wonder then, it's like, did they have time constraints because of the developer or because of the publisher? Did they have budgetary issues? Did COVID negatively impact them that badly? Like, I don't know. I'm really intrigued because it just doesn't feel like the other two games, and not in a great way, honestly. I don't want to say in a terrible way, but like, it just doesn't feel like it's complete in a way. Like it feels like it doesn't have as much polish, let's put it that way, as the other ones. And it's lost its feeling. I was so excited for this, and I was really excited too because like the other two games had their kind of horror elements sort of and their little surprises and creep factors, but they never were like super scary. But then when I saw the imagery for this game, I'm like, oh, are they going into like full out horror now? They're talking about like witchcraft and shit like that. I'm like, oh, this could be really, really good. And I'm just not seeing it. The images that we're seeing in comparison to like, and like the vibe in comparison to what we got, it just was like, no, okay, I'm not really seeing it. So like, whereas I appreciate sort of some of the concepts of the story and some of the ideas they tried doing, just other things just didn't feel right. It felt rushed or just didn't feel like the time was put into it that it should have been. Like one of the biggest things that stood out to me actually was the fact that there was the time where you're in Paul's house. And again, everything like feels like it goes downhill once you go into Paul's house with Ruby, because Ruby's going around with the phone. And of course you have all the audio going everywhere and you have the cuts going all over the place. And there's like these long pauses because it's like, okay, we need enough footage here so that way then we can cut and da-da-da. And they just didn't like edit it properly. It felt like they just put in the rough footage and called it a day. But it was interesting because they had like these smart items, right? Like, oh, there's these smart items around this smart house. And if you interact with them, you'll be able to activate them and then pull the beldam into a new room. Well, the problem is that the house is very linear. So you almost never have to. You actually, for the most part, throughout the whole entire game, really don't have to but once. But they force your hand to activate those points anyway to move them before you can even progress. So it's like, I don't know if they just got stuck with that house last minute. They're like, well, shit, this really doesn't work with the layout. I don't know, because it didn't. It was so linear. It didn't make sense to really move the element to the very end, but they forced you anyway. But through these supposedly smart items, but when they showed the smart items, it was literally an item that looked like it was from like either the 60s, 70s, or 80s, or it looked like something that had been well used for like the past 5 to 10 years. And all they had was a little Vanguard icon that looks like it was printed out on a piece of paper and then just like taped on the device. Like it looked really bad. And it just like it completely pulled me out from that point on. Like the beginning of the game was good, and then I felt like, okay, I don't feel like I have as many options here. This feels a lot more linear. I feel like this is a lot more of a passive experience, way more point and click in a way than rather than like first person simulation. Way more just kind of actively just, okay, and continue, like you're flipping a page in a book, right? And then we got to the halfway point and on, and it just feels like there was just stuff that just wasn't done fully, or they didn't have the time for, the budget for. I don't know. But I don't know. It's an ending. It's a game. I guess I would say like this game is kind of like Mass Effect Andromeda in my eyes, where it's like Mass Effect Andromeda inherently wasn't a bad game, but it wasn't a good Mass Effect game. And I feel like you could say the same thing about Simulacra 3. Simulacra 3 isn't a bad game, but it's not a good Simulacra game. And I think also, too, like, they often went with this whole thing where it's like, well, it's through witchcraft and this art and, the Simulacra just somehow learned. But yet, these are supposed to be like digital entities. Like, this is what they built up for the past 2 games. Now, all of a sudden, this one just like, fuck it, I don't care about being a digital entity. I can go through artwork now. Then what stops them from going through magazines? And what stops them from going through newspapers? And what stops them from going through billboards? Like, they have to have some sort of restrictions of some sort. Because otherwise, what you're doing is you're painting too broad of a stroke, and it's actually going to make it really hard to come up with actually good content and like ways of stopping them. It's going to become memey in a way. At least with technology, yeah, they have access to all this information. They can get to places, but you can find ways of cutting off the access to that information or that information highway. Whereas, now they can just come through anything, a toy or this or that. And it's just like, okay, then what the fuck's the point? Like, I don't know. I think having some barriers up for what a simulacra can do and where they can go is important. And when you take that away, it's just like, well, then fuck it. Like, who the hell cares? I don't know. Like, it's just weird. It just like, it felt like they took like some of these ideas and philosophies that they built up in the first and second one and just said, screw it. This thing can do other shit now. Which then goes, I feel like, against the philosophies and the things that they were building up in the first and second game. And there was so much more about like the town and the homestead and community, which is great. Great. If you want to tell a story about community, that's great. But I feel like then if that's the case, they lost the story of the overall game and where it was going, where it felt like it was going with 1 and 2. And what's interesting, and again, this doesn't mean it's bad though, but what is interesting is that Simulacra games are typically known for their bad endings. And not bad as in terrible, but bad as in like sad, negative. Someone gets harmed, and it's very hard to get the positive ending. There's like multiple bad negative endings, but only one positive. And the positive one's usually pretty damn hard to get to. The first one was not incredibly easy to get because it was just based on your, circumstance, situation of what you chose, right? And what stuff that seems small or smaller became a lot bigger later on. And in the second game was a hell of a lot more complex. This one was just like, cool, you got it. And it just feels weird. I mean, I'm fine with a happy ending, and I'm fine with getting it the first time and saving Ruby. But it just feels weird. Again, it just feels like they just took the structure they had built that was working for them and went, nah, it's okay. But I don't know why, and I'm really curious on that. Was it time? Was it budget? Was it just, they just felt like doing something different and they decided to within sort of the framework? They painted it as Simulacra, but it's really something else. I don't know. I can't speak for them because I'm not the developer, but I mean, overall, like Simulacra 1 and 2, I would say would be, again, with 10 out of 10 being like impossible to get because that's like the perfect game, I would give them both like 7s personally, for what they did, for what they were working with and everything else, I really enjoyed them. I really enjoyed, like, they're some of my top games I really appreciate. This one, I would probably give like maybe a 5 out of 10, if that really means anything again. You know, again, it's based on perspective of the person. I'm speaking from someone who's played both games very recently, pretty much back to back to back, 1 and 2 and then into 3. And yeah, this just wasn't exciting. It was frustrating too, like I said, because there were just times where they needed hints, they didn't use them, times where they didn't need hints, but they used them. Things were just not very clear. They, you know, implemented certain mechanics without actually introducing them. And it just was frustrating. It was very frustrating. So, yeah, I don't know. Whereas the first and second game, I had the urge to replay them, and I had the urge to try to get the good ending because I felt like a part of the story where it's like, I want these characters to win, though. I want them to, you know, to survive and all that. And this one, I'm like, okay, cool. Whether we got Ruby or not, I don't care. You get to the end, cool. I probably won't play this game again. And I'm not saying it because, again, it's not terrible. It's just, okay, cool. I experienced it. I can move on. So, I don't know. I'd be intrigued to see where Kaigen Games goes. And, you know, do they come out with a Simulacra 4? Will they do another game? You know, I will be intrigued. But this game, definitely not a great game. Not a great Simulacra game. It's an okay game. It's not a great Simulacra game. And maybe with time, too, they can polish it and update a few things, but they're not going to be able to change some of the things at its very core. That's already in there. That's already built in there. It's already too late, right? So, yeah. It's kind of a bummer because I was super excited, but it's all right. It's an all right game. Would I recommend it? It's weird because I feel like you're not going to really appreciate certain elements of the game unless you've played the first and second ones, understanding the Simulacra and stuff like that. I mean, do you absolutely have to? No. But can it help with certain elements of it as you're getting into the game? Yes. But if you've played the other 2 games, will you be let down by the ending? Probably. Probably. And overall gameplay? Probably, to an extent. You know, if you've never played a Simulacra game, you might find it fine. Maybe pretty good. More or less. You know, it's different, right? But yeah, I would say, I mean, try it if you really want to, based on watching other people play or, you know, looking at reviews and stuff like that. If you played the other 2 especially, you know, just know that this doesn't feel quite the same. It's like they tried some new things, but they also took away a lot of stuff. Which is unfortunate. So it doesn't have the depth. It doesn't have the layers that the other ones do. It doesn't have the amount of choices. It feels like you're very passive and you're just flipping pages in a book rather than actively in a sort of simulation in a way of your own, getting lost in the story and rooting for the characters because there isn't much character development. There really isn't. I think the most is from Paul through videos and then he's dead. So it's like, man, well, the only person that really had some development, or at least you could kind of be like, oh, you're a cool guy. You're interesting. You're quirky, but all right. And then it's like, well, he's dead anyway, so whatever. So with that, that is the playthrough. That is the review of Simulacra 3. So if you checked it out here on Twitch, thank you very, very much. You can feel free to check out the VODs if you missed any of the other days. Again, we'll be also putting this on YouTube. So if you're seeing this on YouTube, thank you very much. If you want to see more reviews and gameplay and so much more of horror, thriller, mystery games like this and many more, feel free to subscribe for free. Also, you know, like, dislike, comment, share your thoughts on if you've played Simulacra 3 or the other Simulacra installments. Let me know your thoughts as well. I'd love to hear them. So thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one.